how many people are in my boat? If I'm on a project and they're like, hey, we don't have a designer, can you design the thing? Like, not comfortable with that. Anybody on the other side of the spectrum? You're such a front-end engineer, you're happy to make mocks and design applications. Okay, excellent. Target audience, great. Title of the talk is Design for Non-Designers. Broad strokes here. I want to think a little bit about design, and you're actually good at design, but certain kinds of design. Let's talk about the kind of design that we're not good at, hypothesize about why we're not good at it, learn a few principles and processes, and then practice it a little bit and see if we're better than we were when we started, which is going to be like anywhere between 20 minutes and about an hour, because I haven't really done this talk much. We did the introductions already, but Simeon, local boy, currently head of engineering at Plus Plus, and I got a little, small 6 or 7 person engineering team, and I now get to code about half the time and do a lot of other boring things. Now nobody cares. I used to work at Twitter, and I was always Twitter made me extremely nervous about saying anything whatsoever, but now I work at Plus Plus, and nobody cares. But opinions are my own. What is design? Design for non-designers. I say, are you a designer? And everybody shakes their head. But what is design? You ask Wikipedia, what is design? And it has this long, thing. Actually, this is the International Council of Design, which it's in their interest to make design sort of a mysterious and abstract concept that didn't help me very much. But if you ask Wikipedia, you get something shorter. It's like, okay, the concept or proposal for an object processor system. Sure. I design all kinds of things, right? And you do too. I designed these shoes. I picked some colors from a drop-down box, right? But I've helped design processes. I've helped design systems. I've helped design objects before. I've designed a lot of things. You have too. In fact, I'm a professional designer. I am paid to design things. If you saw an interview question that was like, design a set of object-oriented classes to simulate a blackjack game, no sweat, Make a system implementation of a URL shortener service that's going to have millions of requests. That's fine. These are entry-level problems, and you're extremely comfortable designing large, complex systems or big abstract ideas in code, right? Oh, sure, technical design. We're happy with technical design. And the reason we're happy with that kind of design is we're experienced. If I took a minute here to say, what are all the idioms, terms, processes, principles associated with software design that we could be here literally all night, right? You go through design patterns in functional languages, object-oriented component languages. We go through high-level ideas, historical ideas. We have a wealth of knowledge about a particular kind of design that makes that kind of design, no big deal. But when I get asked this, I have this form, would you design a better user experience for me? I kind of what do I do? I don't know. Or worse, a designer comes to me with something and I'm like, is this good? I don't know what to say. I don't know how to make that judgment call because I don't have a wealth of idioms, principles, processes, etc. to deal with this kind of design. So there's a bit of a bait and switch. If you talk to somebody who calls themselves a designer, probably they're a visual designer, and they're talking about visual design, not just design, not a proposal for a system. That could be a 3-paragraph letter, and you've written a bunch of those in your career as a software developer. They're talking specifically about communicating to people visually and aesthetically. And I don't know about you, but this thing, I'm no good at this thing particularly. I'm not particularly good at this by nature. Visual design is a process of enhancing the aesthetics and usability. Visual elements like color, typography, and layout. I don't really care about that stuff. I said to my designer at one point early on in a previous gig, everything should be a command line application. That's where I'm happiest. That's where everybody else should be happiest. Monospace fonts, I really, green and black is good enough for any problem that you may confront. And some of that is just, I'm not a visual person. I'm not saying I'm not a creative person. I'm not even an artistic person. I love music. Give me a guitar and I'm all sorts of creative. But if you tell me to design something visually, I don't really know what to do. It's just not me. And not every developer is in that boat. I've worked with folks who like doodle and draw and cartoon. And in my experience, those people, I can come back to you with like, oh, here's 4 different ways that this modal should potentially look. And they look reasonable to me. How can I tell? I'm not a designer, right? So thank goodness God invented back-end engineering, right? But the bad news is, as developers, we frequently will get tasked with visually designing all kinds of things, whether it's an agenda for a meeting that should be functional, but also it'd be nice if it looked good. Documentation for a product, your designer's not going to come help you design your documentation. Homepage is consumed primarily by internal developers, but it should function well, and there seems to be some kind of connection between looking good and working well. You will get stuck. It's one modal. You don't need a designer for that. Go, lay it out yourself. And thank goodness for the rise of frameworks. If you have MUI or you have Bootstrap, a lot of simple design problems are, well, just use the built-in components and it kind of works out. But we get tasked with visually designing things. And I would contend that if you had a little bit of principles, processes, and idioms in the area of visual design, then at least that kind of just like, reaction would go away. Like, I don't know what to do. So won't pretend that I can make you a visual designer in a few minutes, but I can make that feeling go away. I can give you a couple of principles, a process that'll help you improve the visual design of things. And I bet you $1 next meetup, you'll still remember it. So visual design principles. I said if we were doing like technical design principles, we could talk all day and list all kinds of idioms and ideas and patterns and processes. I'm just going to give you a few. I'm going to suggest that you actually practice this in a little bit. So I asked ChatGPT to give me like a sample menu for a breakfast cafe in plain text. And so I have like a, tinyurl.com/chatGPT breakfast. You brought your laptop, fire it up and copy and paste. I'll show you this again. You get a chance to do this towards the end. And I'm hoping you'll try to apply the process principles we're going to run through here and design me a menu. And I thought about trying to design an app or something that's more explicitly technical, but our time is too short probably to do anything more than plain text. But this is fun, and we're going to use this idea to illustrate a few of the principles and processes and whatnot that we talked through. You could, of course, get your own breakfast menu, but it's kind of fun to start. I've done this with teams. So we all start from the same text document, and then like, hey, what kind of visual artifacts do we have at the end? So come back to that. But let's talk about what processes, principles, idioms we could use. And this is where, if you go look, hey, what are the principles? What are the processes of visual design? What should designers know? How do visual designers work? If you ask your designer, my company has a designer, and I ask him sometimes, well, imagine that you're talking to somebody who doesn't code at all, and they ask you, how do you design a distributed system? It's hard to have a productive conversation between an expert and a really rank beginner. And so if my designer goes into Gestalt theory, it doesn't help me very much. So I would, and there's specific technical subdomains. There's stuff about typography to know about. Do things have serifs or not, and what is kerning anyways? There's color theory stuff to know about. How do I know that these two colors work well together on the same page or don't, and what do they mean? So I want to propose that really all you need is a process and 4 principles. I've got a lovely mnemonic for our principles. Too far. Here we go. Process is just, first you have to name all the elements, all the nouns, all the things. And there's frequently more things than you would think. So if we're going to design this, what are all the elements that we might apply some design to? Here's a small snippet I can fit on a slide of a breakfast menu. What elements do you see? What do we got?
I have a question about your question. So are you saying like just the text? Like we're not talking about like a visual menu. You're saying.
Well, we're gonna make a visual menu, so it might be okay. Like down the road, we might say, oh, we have 2 columns, and a column would be a noun in our design. But at the start, we have the elements of the system we're building. If this were an application, we might say that there's some input boxes, there's some buttons, there's some modals. We might go down to data modeling. Here I've got a menu, and I guess a breakfast menu would be noun number 1, but it's composed of individual smaller pieces. What are those pieces?
So name, ingredients, and price. Or no.
Okay, yeah. So yes, there's an item like sunrise scramble is an item, and so it has a name. There's a ingredients list or description or whatever, and a price. Great. What else? Is that all the nouns on the page? All the elements we have to design with?
You have a category there.
We have a category. What do you mean?
Beverages. So like
It kind of implies there's like a main dishes and beverages, and there's going to be 2 different categories. Sure, great. What else?
Name of the restaurant?
There's a title up there, up for the menu, and maybe that's the name of the restaurant or the name of the menu, or yeah, great.
I was going to go. ChatGPT breakfast.
Awesome. I would go to ChatGPT Breakfast Cafe, where the short order cook like asked ChatGPT, dude in a tan baseball cap just walked in, what should I make him for breakfast? What else?
It tastes better if you tell it to think step by step when it makes it.
Tell it that it is the best chef in the world.
You are the best chef in the world. Once you've given an answer, reconsider your answer, think about it for a little while, and then give me a slightly better one.
Please and thank you.
Any other elements? We got a title for our menu. We got a menu. We got items, descriptions, prices, categories.
If this is supposed to be interactive, I see that there's a choice in one of them, like your choice of toppings. So if this is something that people are actually going to
Even if it's
not,
I mean, let's say it's not interactive. This is going to be a printed menu.
Okay.
That's still, you're right. Look at that description. Not all these descriptions are created equal, right? There's a thing where it comes with this, and there's a thing where choose, I don't know, some of your choice of. That might be a thing that our visual design would want to note separately somehow, and we won't do that if we don't have a name for it. So yeah, we have like optional ingredients. There's an element on our page.
So is it an and or an or?
Programmer jokes. There's category titles. There's only one here, beverages, and maybe there should be like main dishes, but there's category titles. Okay, so this is the process, and again, you can do this with an app. You can do this with a data schema. You can do this with a document that you have, but you got to go through and say what are the pieces that I have that I'm going to apply some design to, and that is step 1 because you can only talk about things once you've given it a name. And we know this is true in code. I have an application that I recently ran a little bit. There's a obscure piece of functionality that we don't have a name for, and it's been broken, and everybody knows that it's broken, but we never talk about it because it's not really a noun. That you have to when you do that one thing and you click that one button and there's that thing that shows up, that doesn't really work. For some reason, you got to give things a name. You got to have a name in order to talk about it. If it doesn't have a name, you're not going to realize that it's a thing there to be designed. The principles I want to give you are CRAP. C-R-A-P. It's a mnemonic. This is shamelessly stolen from the Non-Designer's Design Book by Robin Williams. That is, not that Robin Williams. Robin Williams I think did some human interface guidelines authoring for Apple back in the day. I think this is the 4th edition of the book, and this book might almost predate desktop computers and is still totally worth your time if you're not a designer. And I'm going to present to you like 20% of the material from the book. But I've always been able to remember the discussion of CRAP. It's a shockingly helpful mnemonic. Contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. That's what it stands for. And let me just briefly review what those principles mean and how we would apply them a little bit, and then let's have you practice. So start with contrast. maybe the most important one, like contrast is for something. We just gave names to all the things. And contrast is the way we will communicate visually to the person looking at our app, at our page, at our document. These different things are in fact different. We need to visually communicate that nouns are nouns, and that this noun is not the same thing as that noun. And so the idea that different things should look different is super fundamental. And it's not a matter of like, make it look pretty. It's a matter of human cognition, right? How many ingredients are in this menu? Okay, now how many ingredients are in the menu? You can't count either time, but just instead of having an undifferentiated wall of text bolding the name, suddenly makes it feel a lot more organized. And it's not that you turn the intensity up. If you turn the intensity up of everything, you'd be in the exact same position. It's that some things are bold and some things are not. It's contrast. Visual design is not just, I won't say it isn't, it is designed to improve the aesthetics of things. I never have much luck thinking like, how can I make this pretty? But I do have a lot of luck thinking like, how can I effectively communicate the actual state of the app, document, etc. to the user through visual design. And contrast is A, just to differentiate between things. But B, you could be slightly more sophisticated about that, and you could think about contrast as showing the relative importance of things. So more important things should be more, less important things should be less. And you could pull in the principles of hierarchy and scale, et cetera, but just think about the things that you could contrast. And even just in a document like this, there's fonts. Fonts could be big, they could be heavy, they could have different forms and faces. You could apply colors, and colors could be contrasty. There's a lot of contrast that we could apply. And my main tip in terms of applying contrast is use it. And if you're like me, you're not a very visually aesthetic kind of person. Lots of developers are like, okay, so I need big fonts at 16, medium fonts at 14, and small fonts at 12, right? Or I'm going to use 400, 500, 600 as my font weights. Like, there's not enough difference to tell. Go for contrast. Turn up the contrast. And when it's so loud that it's yelling at you, turn it back down a little bit. But contrast should jump out at you a little bit, if at all possible. And, I'm primarily thinking tonight's exercise and thinking about documents, but do consider a lot of ways you can aesthetically use contrast. You could think about textures and backgrounds. You could think about shapes, and here I don't mean you'll necessarily put circles and squares on your page, but the layout of items on your page frequently might follow geometric shapes or organic shapes, and you can think about doing one some places and doing the other some places. You're well advised to have a single dominant contrast. So in a document that's planning for a process, you probably don't want to have a lot of different colors, and also a lot of different sizes, and also a lot of different font weights, and add a lot of graphical items. You're probably just going to use size, and that's going to be pretty much the only contrast you have. Or maybe you'll use a secondary contrast. You have one that's kind of about hierarchy and scale, and one that's like, oh, look at this one little thing, for emphasis. Think about contrast from the point of view of readability and accessibility. But visual interest, just the relief you feel when you switch from looking at that wall of undifferentiated text to a wall that suddenly, oh, it's a list, and I can sort of see how many things there are. That's what contrast can do for us. Okay, so crap. C is contrast. R is repetition. And repetition, is kind of the opposite of contrast. It's where you start from often if you don't apply any design, and you do want to apply contrast, but you also want to make sure that elements that are the same look the same. Again, from that zoomed out view where you can't even really count, you can't even read the lines exactly. It should still be obvious from that list, like, oh, all the bolded things are the same kind of thing, whatever that is, can't read it. And all the non-bolded things are the same kind of thing, whatever that is, can't read it. Because of repetition, you're doing the same thing over and over again. So repetition helps you unify your design. It helps you say, hey, this is one menu actually. And then it has a bunch of things in it, some unknown number, that are fundamentally all the same. Repetition lets us communicate that. If you want to be a little bit more pro style, you can identify some design elements and repeat them with variation. So 2 nouns on your page might not be exactly the same thing, but they might be related. And so you might apply a design to them that's similar, but not exactly the same. And again, whether that's similar font sizes at similar title levels, whether that's like, oh, hey, we'll underline all the names of things and we'll bold all the category lists. Applying similar ideas. You might have a graphical element and you can repeat the graphical element. You might have a color element and it's slightly different, but it's in the same color family. But do think about repetition in terms of color, shape, texture, fonts. Here's one: spatial relationships. So indentation, how close things are, paddings and margins. You can communicate a lot of similarity just by ruthlessly making sure that things that are similar look similar. And this helps me sympathize with my designer a little bit more. He's like, it's 4 pixels too high, and this one had this much space, and this other one had that much spacing. And my sympathies as a developer for like, who cares, right? Like 4 pixels, is that really? But they're not the same thing anymore if they're slightly different. So repetition is important. Alignment. Yep, that's it. The alignment. We can just keep on going. Actually, alignment is making visual connections between elements and saying that where things are on the page should be chosen, where things are in your app should be chosen, not just that's where it happened to fall. I always have trouble with this with the web because the web encourages us frequently to have arbitrary content that's going to be laid out according to some rules, not carefully placed and positioned. So, a careful, beautiful grid system does not necessarily always work, but we can strive for this and use systems that do strive for this. And it's not an accident. I'm using a plain text system to generate my slides here, and all of my slides are left aligned, and there's really an imaginary line that you can see running down the left-hand side. And if one of those slides was in like 4 or 5 pixels, or one of those lines was in 4 or 5 pixels, you would see it. The human eye is really good at detecting straight lines and not straight lines. It's really good at detecting things like 90-degree angles. Alignment is really important. The lack of alignment can be really confusing. You should use left alignment if you don't know what you're doing. So that's me. Everything should be, left aligned, especially documents in Western cultures. You read from left to right, so documents are left aligned. But do note, you don't have to only have one alignment point. This is a little picture of the Gutenberg Bible, which is one of the more ancient artifacts of Western civilization, printed Western civilization. Hey, the 2-column layout was invented a really long time ago. And alignment creates invisible lines. And if you're kind of pro about it, invisible grids. Don't forget the lefts and the tops of things, especially. You can't always get the rights and the bottoms, but the lefts and the tops of things. Any noun on your page, you should be like, what does this line up with? And it'll probably be better if you find the other things that are the same that it should be lined up with and force that alignment on it. Center alignment can be done. It's a little weaker for text, but it can be really strong for shapes. So if you have apps where it's not just text, center alignment can be really strong. Don't forget about your tops. If you do break alignment, that's a really useful visual design technique. Probably like pull columns or little paragraphs that break in. But again, go big or go home. Don't break alignment by 10 pixels. Like, don't make it look like I accidentally moved this line over a little bit. Make into it big time. So crap. We had contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity is the last one. And proximity is, especially in our menu, in our document, we're not going to actually draw a box and label it menu item around every group of title, description, and price. But we do want to organize information by proximity and put the things that are sort of related together close to one another visually and farther apart from things that are separate. And just, really a dumb example. People are probably aware of the lovely FedEx logo that is designed with an arrow in it. and the arrow is the white space. It's like the absence of color there. But you'd never name white space, and especially I don't as a non-designer, as a non-visual designer, and it doesn't have a name. It's not a title. It's not an ingredient. It's not a price. It's not this. But you should be consciously thinking when you're doing your process, going through all of your nouns, going through all of your elements, and saying, hey, did I contrast, repetition? White space is on that list. Consciously make white space part of your design. And look, if you take the menu and you bold the titles, you can see, okay, there's three things, right? That I can see that. If you add white space to it evenly, it's worse. Are there three things? Again, my eyes are kind of confused, but if you group it, if you use proximity, it's like, oh yeah, no, there's three things, and it's much cleaner than the first one. And you can use proximity. Like what we're trying to do is simplify the page. That stupid configuration box that's got 49 different options is just overwhelming to everybody. The human mind processes things in chunks of 7 plus or minus 2. Like make those 30 paragraphs be 3 columns, and then your brain is a little bit like, oh, okay, there's 3 things on the page. Like those 40 configuration things, figure out what the groups are, put them in groups, visually convey the groups. And again, it just kind of calms you down a little bit and simplifies, declutters, de-stresses. And hopefully accurately conveys information about the information, meta information. This is how they're in 4 chunks. These things are all related to one another. And again, you don't have to say that explicitly. You use how far apart things are to say that. Okay, so I've talked a lot. Let's have you do 2 see and tell exercises, and then I'd like for you to go ahead and design that breakfast menu for me. So what do you see? I went and grabbed rock concert posters. I looked at old album covers, because they're the kinds of things that if I think about like, oh, visually designing documents, it's like, oh, they're attractive. They grab your attention. They're obviously visually designed. And again, historically, that's the kind of thing where I've been like, well, like, why do you say that? I get that I react to it, but I don't have any process. Well, okay, we have crap. What do you see? Is that applied to this Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, flyer? What do you see?
Straight lines, contrast.
Where's the contrast?
Between the text, between the font and the background. This is contrast.
So having that background be black really makes the light yellow there, pop a lot. There's a big contrasting difference between that. Sure. What else?
Contrast between Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers is font size.
Font size.
Yeah.
Yep. And like, what is the most important thing on the page? Tom Petty.
Yeah.
What is the next most important thing? The Heartbreakers and 40th anniversary. Where does Joe Walsh rank? Like barely above Morrison, Colorado, 52903 or whatever. What else do you see?
Looks like they sized the Heartbreakers to have the alignment be consistent on both left and right.
Yeah, they did Justified, and Justified is tricky. It sounds like the best of all possible worlds, but you get weird rivers running through your text if you don't have like a layout engine you can apply, and I frequently don't in things I work on. So be careful of justification, both left and right aligned. But yeah, there's a alignment on the left mostly, although you'll notice like, hey, the 40th anniversary and the Joe Walsh bits are kind of indented. Do they line up with anything at all? Not quite. Like Joe Walsh and 40th anniversary don't seem to quite line up. I almost wish I could get this and like play with it a little bit. Would I like it better if I made those things, line up? All right, what else do you see?
Like, because it's justified and makes space for the head of the guitar to like point into between the text. It makes it feel more filled in, I guess.
That's kind of cool, and it relates the image. Like the image is on the same page as the text. It's sticking into the text. The two are kind of tied together. That's kind of fun. Contrast between the text and the image. Text is, loud color red, and I'm not doing color theory at all and can't really do that, but I can note how much that grabs your attention. I love the connection of, it's a heart with a break in it, and the name, the Heartbreakers, so the image and the text are connected together, even though they're very different visually. Proximity, repetition. I've heard contrast and alignment.
petition for all the tour dates.
Yeah, that's real. 3-column tabular layout just left to right. Like those are not important that you read all those, and so you just kind of perceive that as okay, great. It's a bunch of data on the bottom.
It's not part of your acronym, but the problem that I've got many problems with design, but one of my big ones is like white space. Just make sure there's ample white space. There's decent white space,
Black space in this case.
White space.
At the very bottom, I see that there's some very, very fine print.
Yeah, I have no idea what that says.
Probably something like no refund or
Although if that's in the original, it's kind of funny. Yeah, it's www.tompetty.com is the red, which the red actually might call back to the red image in the middle. So there's a repeat of a design element there, just barely.
Proximity.
Oh, please go for it.
I was just going to say that. Things that are supposed to be related should be close together. It's kind of like proximity.
Title of the band is one. It doesn't say Tom Petty, and then like at the bottom in the Heartbreakers, those things are in proximity together because they're part of a single noun.
Not to be like too contrarian, but like I don't like that the tour dates take up like 30% of the poster. Because if it's inconsequential, you just took up. It's like a fixed or sticky nav bar that takes up, like Zillow has those that are like taking up like 40% of your screen. It's like, well, if I'm not supposed to pay attention to it, why are you taking up 40% of it?
And I'm not sure what the context is. This is a poster, and so I'm like, if this is posted someplace like on a concert venue, I don't care about all the venues in some other states, and it does feel like a lot of the informational space was wasted. But maybe it's important to convey the scope of this thing. It says 40th anniversary tour. Look at all the places we're going.
Yeah.
Details are important,
Sure.
So, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, they're putting out the same flyer all over the country, right? So,
Again, I'm not sure why Joe Walsh gets his own color and his own font. That's
I was wondering that too. That was the only exception. Joe Walsh and then the red text at the very bottom of the fine print. Everything else is yellow text.
And I guess if you made Joe Walsh yellow, you almost would pass over it. So it's contrast to call attention to one exceptional element in there.
Maybe Joe was like, "Hey, I'm not doing this unless."
My name is in white in this particular font. It's in my contract.
this one sucks.
I went and grabbed old examples.
The typography differences are really distracting.
Not digitally laid out. There seems to be a bit of a palette for rock concerts. Like if you don't have red in it, are you even hardcore?
The use of white space you talked about, the fact that lead is only 3 characters and Zeppelin is 8 really draws attention that there's a big, like a T almost, like a white space.
Yep. And the contrast, like the difference in font size between Led Zeppelin and the next biggest, which I guess is Bath's Hall, is pretty substantial. There's and black versus red, some more contrast. Like there's no question, like where are you going to look at on this poster? I mean, you can barely force yourself to read for one appearance only or something. You're in the middle in the big giant red font. Maybe concert posters like their justified text. I see alignment on both sides again. What else?
Blue, red, blue. I think that's a nice touch. Trying to be positive.
How about the stars? There's a non-text element. It's a graphical design thing, if you like, that's just repeated, and it's actually also repeated. There's a proudly present at Bluesville text up at the very top that also has like a couple stars around it. So just using the same graphical element repeatedly like helps you. This whole thing is one unified whole. Okay, so I just wanted you to try on, the crap thing, but why don't you apply it? So grab the text on my chat GPT breakfast menu. I'll go back to the tiny URL, tinyurl.com/chat GPT-breakfast, I think. Paste it in your text editor of choice, but I would encourage you to use like Google Docs or something because it'd be lovely if you'd share it, or you can come up and plug in and you can display. And I'm going to give everybody 5 to 10 minutes here and consider designing all the elements on the page with contrasts. Go through crap and maybe go through it a couple of times. You might decide at the end, like, okay, contrast and repetition. I did too much contrast and I need more repetition. Maybe the proximity means I don't need as much contrast as I thought I did, or at the beginning I didn't do enough. So it may take a couple passes, but just run through those 4 design principles and see what kind of visually appealing and information communicating breakfast menu you can come up with, and then let's share it with one another. So it's 5 minutes to 7 right now. I'll give you till at least 5 after 7 or so. Enough time to try this out. Let's see, where was I?